Which is the better sports car to buy, the Toyota Supra or the Nissan Z? That's what we're going to find out. Welcome to Car Help Corner, where we help you, the consumer, master the process of car buying and car ownership. For this video, I'm going to give you my take on the 2023 Toyota Supra and the Nissan Z, both with a manual transmission, to find out which is the better sports car to buy. We'll start things off behind the wheel of the Toyota Supra. Now, many car enthusiasts might know that this car was jointly developed with BMW, which means that everything in this car, from the rear-wheel drive platform to the interior to the drivetrain, is completely direct from BMW. Somehow though, the Supra doesn't feel quite like a new BMW. It actually feels more like its own thing. It feels more sharper, more engaging, and just more fun to drive. Maybe it's the fact that the Supra is a lot lighter than a new BMW at just under 3,400 pounds, or maybe it's Toyota's tuning, but either way, this is a great driving car. Now, the Supra is available with two different BMW engines, but personally I would just skip the base 4-cylinder engine and go straight to the 3-liter turbo inline-six. This is the same B58 engine that's used in a lot of new BMWs, and it's probably one of the very best engines that you can buy in any car for under 100 grand. It just does everything extremely well. It's incredibly buttery smooth, it revs freely, it has an amazing exhaust note, and you also have loads of power. Even though it produces 382 horsepower and 368 pound-feet of torque, it feels like it has a lot more power than that, and it's able to accelerate to highway speed in just under 4 seconds. The engine comes matched to a standard 8-speed automatic transmission, but for 2023 you can now get the Supra with an available 6-speed manual. And it really is a great transmission with an amazing feeling shifter that just gives the Supra a level of engagement that it's never really had before. Now, the Supra is not exactly the most comfortable sports car. It does have a rather stiff suspension, and there is quite a bit of road noise, especially at highway speed. But that being said, I'm more than happy to make those trade-offs for the really sharp handling and fun to drive nature. The Supra feels incredibly precise, really responsive, with almost zero body motions. It always feels ready to attack almost any corner that you can throw at it. It really is one of the best and most engaging sports cars that you can buy brand new. But although the Supra does require some compromises in terms of the way it drives, it does have a very comfortable and a luxurious interior. The build quality, the materials, and the fit and finish are all top-notch, and you also have a fairly straightforward control setup with a relatively good infotainment system. As a whole, I would say that it really does live up to its price tag. I know there are many enthusiasts out there who wonder whether the Supra is little more than just a rebodied BMW, but I really think it is. It really is a total blast to drive, an experience that I don't think that you get within BMW's own lineup. But the question is the Supra a better sports car than the Nissan Z? Well, I think it's time to get behind the wheel of it and find out. Alright, behind the wheel of the Nissan Z. Now, this car only comes in a few basic configurations. You can get it with or without a performance package, and a choice of either a 6-speed manual or a 9-speed automatic transmission. My test car here has the performance package with the 6-speed manual, so it compares quite well against the Supra that I recently test drove. Now, after spending a week behind the wheel of both cars, straight away I can tell you that the most significant difference between the two is that the Z feels like a far simpler and more old-school type of sports car. Compared to the Supra, which has state-of-the-art, high-tech BMW engineering behind it, the Nissan Z is a totally different story. There's nothing really super high-tech or groundbreaking about this platform. In fact, the basic chassis of this car can trace its roots back almost 20 years. Not that the use of all those old-school parts is really that noticeable from behind the wheel. It feels incredibly light and nimble with a sharp feel and a very responsive chassis that's extremely well balanced. And even if you were to push it extremely hard, like say in a track environment, and it were to show a few small weaknesses here and there when compared to the Supra, it's really not that noticeable on normal roads. At the end of the day, both of these cars have very impressive handling and are extremely fun to drive, which is exactly what you would expect from a 2-seater sports car like this. That being said, even though the Z is extremely fun to drive, there's no question the drivetrain in this car is really no match for what you get in the Supra. The 3-liter twin-turbo V6 engine, borrowed from the Infiniti Q50 and Q60 Red Sport, produces 400 horsepower and 350 pound-feet of torque. That's quite a bit of power, which means the acceleration is more or less the same as the Supra. But even though this engine has just as much power as the Supra, there's no question, it's not quite as smooth as the BMW's inline-six. It also doesn't sound as good, rev quite as high, and it also doesn't have as good fuel economy either. In fact, it doesn't really sound like anything really. The exhaust is quite quiet, which is a surprise given the fact that most modern cars make all kinds of fake noises and pops and bangs as you push them hard. But none of that in this car. Like I said, it has a very simple, old school feel to it, which is something that a lot of buyers might prefer. And that simplicity also carries over to the interior. Compared to the high-tech, luxurious feel of the Supra's interior, the interior of the Z is way more basic. Although you have a nice-looking digital gauge cluster behind the steering wheel, the rest of the interior is quite old school. The infotainment system is pretty basic, and the seats and the rest of the controls are more or less borrowed from the older Z. But I have to say, in some ways, I actually do like the simple, old-school feel of the Z. Unlike the Supra, which has more of a learning curve to it, this car you can just get in and drive right away and have a total blast behind the wheel. It doesn't have any complicated drive modes. You just have a simple old-school handbrake instead of an electronic brake like you have in the Supra. You just have all the basics that you need and not much more. And even though this car is not as high-tech and well-equipped as the Supra, the price tag is not as high either. Assuming you're able to get both cars for MSRP without any dealer markups, you could save yourself around 10 grand going for the Z over the Supra, which is a substantial amount of money. So at the end of the day, which of these two sports cars is the better choice? Well, I think there's no question. The Supra has a lot of major advantages over the Z. It has a better drivetrain with a much more talented engine with a better shifter for the 6-speed manual. It also has a nicer interior, more features, and better technology. And even though both cars are extremely fun to drive, I think if you were to push both of them to their limit, there's no question the Supra would be the more talented car. In fact, the Supra is such a fun and well-rounded car that I really don't see much of a point in spending more money on something like a BMW M2. Compared to the M2 or any comparable BMW really, it delivers 90% of the same driving experience while costing way less. But with that said, I think the Nissan Z also has its own unique appeal in a different way. There's something about its simple, straightforward, old-school feel that has a real appeal to it. For someone that doesn't need all the fancy extras of the BMW designed Supra, or just wants to relive the 90s and early 2000s sports car experience, this is the one to do it with. Of course, Toyota also offers their own version of that simple, old-school type of sports car, which of course is the GR86. If you just want to have a fun-to-drive, rear-wheel drive sports car and don't mind sacrificing some power, then the GR86 is a great way to save yourself a lot of money. Personally, if it were me, a manual Supra would be the way to go, but I really wouldn't complain taking home either one of these cars. At the end of the day, we should be celebrating the fact that you can still buy a simple, old-school rear-wheel drive sports car in this day and age. With the world increasingly being dominated by SUVs and electrification, who knows for how much longer cars like this are still going to be around. One thing's for sure though, whichever one of these cars you choose, you are not going to be disappointed. So let me know which of these two sports cars you would take, or would you go for something else instead? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe. You can also take a look at my other car videos by clicking these links over here. Make sure to follow me on TikTok and Instagram, and if you need additional car buying advice, recommendations, or help with getting a great deal on your next new car purchase, make sure to check out carhelpcanada.com. Thanks so much for watching, and see you next time.